Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever been in the middle of an online lecture and you just feel your attention slipping away, your eyes glazing over, or maybe just this building sense of frustration? Well, you're not just imagining it. There's actually a science to why so many of these online lectures feel wrong, and we're about to break it all down.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You're leaning into the screen, squinting to try and make out some blurry text. Or maybe you're constantly hitting rewind because the professor mumbled something important. Or, let's be honest, just completely zoning out because the pace is just painfully slow. You're trying to learn, but it feels like you're literally fighting the video itself.
So, here's the good news. That feeling of frustration, it's not just in your head. It's a real, measurable problem. A couple of researchers, Christopher Lang and Jamie Cosley, dug deep into this and came up with a clear framework that's almost like a diagnostic tool for bad online lectures. It pinpoints exactly what gets in the way of our learning.
So, let's get right into their findings. What they did was distill thousands of student comments into 5 distinct categories of media problems. We're going to call them the 5 annoyances. These are the core issues that can turn what should be a valuable lesson into a totally frustrating experience.
Now, get this. In their study of university students in South Korea, a whopping 27% of students who left feedback had specific complaints about the media itself. Just think about that for a second. More than 1 in 4 students felt that the video's design was actively getting in the way of their education. That's huge. And here's exactly how those complaints break down. The number one culprit, coming in at 34%, was simply quality. Right behind that, you've got intelligibility and pace. These 3 issues alone account for the vast majority of student frustration. So let's unpack what they actually mean. First up, what do students even mean by quality? Well, it's not about winning an Oscar for filmmaking. It's about the basic look and feel of the video. Is the image clear? Are the slides well designed? Does it look like it was made this decade? Or does it feel like you just pulled out a dusty VHS tape? That first impression really, really matters.
And this comment, it just says it all. The video felt so old that this student was ready to give up on the entire course. That's not just some minor complaint. That's a direct threat to their education.
Okay, next up is intelligibility, and this one is even more fundamental. This is about the absolute basics. Can you actually see and hear what's being presented? If the text is a blurry mess or the audio is just full of static, the learning process grinds to a halt before it even gets a chance to start.
This is a perfect example. This student did everything right. They even went full screen, but the video's design completely failed them. It's such a simple, avoidable barrier that just completely blocks their ability to learn anything.
The third major complaint is all about pace. And this one, it's a tricky one. If it's too fast, you can't possibly keep up. But if it's too slow, you're literally fighting to stay awake. Finding that sweet spot with speed is absolutely crucial for keeping learners engaged. Oh man, how many of us have lived on that 2x speed button? This student is basically using a tech workaround to fix a core design flaw in the lecture. It's a classic sign that a one-size-fits-all pace just rarely works for everyone.
And the last 2 culprits are a lack of media diversity, which is just a fancy way of saying a boring, repetitive presentation, and a lack of congruence. Congruence is just when things don't line up, like out-of-sync audio or a dog barking in the background that's constantly fighting for your attention.
All right, so we know what the problems are. Quality, intelligibility, pace. But why do they make us feel so frustrated? Why does a blurry video actually make it harder to learn? The answer isn't just about personal preference, it's about how our brains are wired.
So, it all comes down to this really important concept called extraneous cognitive load. The easiest way to think about it is this. Your brain's working memory is like a small, limited workspace. When a video is poorly designed, your brain has to waste a huge chunk of that workspace just trying to decode the presentation, leaving very little room for, actual learning. And that's the key takeaway here. Bad design isn't just annoying, it's a cognitive thief. Every single ounce of mental energy you spend trying to decipher blurry text or filtering out bad audio is energy that's being stolen from the real task, understanding the material.
But here's the really empowering part. Once you understand the problems and the science behind them, the solutions become incredibly clear. And the best part? They're often surprisingly simple to implement.
This table just connects all the dots perfectly. Let's take pace, for example. The brain issue is cognitive overload. The simple fix? Segmentation, just breaking a long lecture into smaller, digestible chapters.
This works because it gives your brain a chance to process the info before moving on. Or look at intelligibility. Small text causes all that extra processing. The fix? Give the user controls to zoom. It hands the power back to the learner, letting them reduce their own cognitive load. See, it's all about targeting the brain issue with a specific design solution.
And that right there is the real secret. Creating effective online learning isn't about having the most expensive camera or the flashiest animations. It's about making deliberate, thoughtful design choices that respect how our brains actually work.
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? Well, it really boils down to one simple but super powerful shift in our mindset.
Ultimately, it just comes down to this. Instead of fighting against the brain's natural limits with cluttered and confusing media, we should be designing with the brain in mind. The goal is to create a clear, accessible path for the learner, not some kind of frustrating obstacle course. So, let me leave you with this question. After everything we've just talked about, if you had to go back and fix one online course you've ever taken, what's the first simple change you would make to give the learner's brain a break?